Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Connecting in the Virtual Classroom. My name is Rusty May, and I am a school counselor by trade. Have been doing online counseling basically for the last 20 years. And when the pandemic started, I joined the Learning Revolution to do the Connected Classroom to help parents and teachers deal effectively with the challenges of online learning and making these quick transitions into the classroom. We're going to have a guest today, Patricia Dickenson, who's just joining us. Thank you, Patricia. It's good to see you. I'll unmute you so you can say hi. I also want to say hi to our guests that are visiting today. We like to start each day with kind of saying hi. Nicole, you were with us earlier this afternoon. You're back. Nicole, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Or wait, no, I wasn't.
How are
Okay.
you? Thank you for joining us again. You were here at 3 o'clock for the 3 o'clock show as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of free time today.
Okay. Are you an educator? I know last time you told us that you were, are you in college? Are you planning on being an educator?
I'm a librarian.
Okay. Where do you work?
I work for the state,
Okay. In what state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, thanks for being with us again. I hope you'll join us throughout the conversation.
Thanks.
And Patricia Allen, would you like to say hi and tell us why you're here today, Patricia? All right, Patricia, you can talk to us if you want to raise a hand. Be happy to see you. Patricia Dickenson, how are you?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah?
good. I'm up. I was jamming
You
up to some 80s music this morning, so I'm feeling a little pumped up.
you were in California, is that correct?
Yes, I am in California. I'm up north, about an hour from San Francisco. So, yeah, doing the
Have
whole
you been
thing.
have you been affected by the fires? Where are you north? You're north?
We were evacuated for 11 days. So yes, we have felt the discomfort of being evacuated and the stress of potentially losing your home. But we're back. We're back and things are rolling and the kids are home zooming and I'm home teaching, so the flow is going.
So you recently, I think it was in June, right? You published your book on Amazon, The
Yeah,
Virtual Classroom.
it's right here. I did bring a copy, so
Very nice.
I have a copy for our listeners today. If they want to send me their email address, I will be sending out a free copy. So I'm excited to
Well,
have the
I,
opportunity to talk about it.
I appreciate that. And also this, we're recording this and it's going to be shown on the larger Learning Revolution has been accumulating a lot of video to be putting onto their they currently have an emergency summit that's basically dealing with the ideas of how parents and teachers are dealing with the pandemic and so forth. So we have two people joining us today, but there's been just a huge response to the Learning Revolution site with thousands of views on the videos. So um, hopefully that'll be something that that you can maybe share with them somehow, but also it may not be something you can share with all the people that'll potentially watch the show.
Absolutely. And, parents are now teachers. Let's not be confused about that. If you're home with your kids and your kids are doing distance learning, you are teaching them. So, put your bootstraps on and don't be afraid to join professional learning networks on Facebook or Twitter and ask questions, just like teachers do. When teachers have a question about, how can I get my kids to engage in a narrative writing prompt, that's exactly what teachers do. They're great at asking for help, right? Because we want to support and serve all of our students, and who best to know the students than the actual parents of the students. So you have an advantage there. Don't think you're walking into the dark not knowing what to do. You already have the skills of knowing your kids and knowing their learning style. It's now getting into that pedagogical knowledge that you need to make distance learning a success.
So now you also do teacher training as well for National University, is that correct?
That's right. I've been teaching for National University since 2012. and I do a lot of professional development. I work with local schools out here in California, anything on math and technology. So yeah, I'm in the mix, and I'm also running a daily math chat for second through fourth graders. It's on Zoom, and the kids are having a lot of fun. We're doing a number talk every day, and just having fun with math.
So what are you hearing from the field? What are you hearing from the teachers that are out there? What are you hearing from your students about what their concerns are going forward? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I have the privilege of also not just being a parent and observing what's happening, but also being a teacher educator and observing brand new teachers that have never taught before that are also doing distance learning. So I think some of these brand new teachers are doing an amazing job. And I kind of wonder if it's because they've also had the experience of being a student online, and a lot of these teacher candidates that I work with have done their entire teacher education program through distance learning.
Right.
So they're doing a phenomenal job of integrating different technology tools and really being mindful of student engagement and ways they can make content meaningful. I think there's been, at least my personal experience as a parent, some initial anxiety and angst about moving to distance learning. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of different varieties in terms of approaches, whether teachers are moving towards a highly collaborative model or a model that is predominantly, teacher-centric or teacher-directed and a lot of teacher talk. So there's a lot of variety. I actually did a podcast a few weeks ago with 3 teachers that are currently engaged in distance learning, and they shared some of their experiences and frustrations and things that are really working well. So that's on my podcast. An earlier podcast, I actually interviewed about 4 parents about their experiences, their frustrations, things that are going well for them. So, I think everybody is kind of in a growth mindset mode, and we're just trying to make the best out of the situation. At the same time, learning how to give each other grace is huge, right?
Right.
And just having a lot of patience and understanding and compassion. And it's been I would say it's been a very mixed response in terms of how the students are reacting to this platform and this mode of instruction.
Our show really focuses on the social emotional learning part, because I come at it from the counseling perspective, and with everything that's happened and the mental health challenges associated with the lockdown and with all the situations about being away from friends and so forth. I know that you focus more on the analytical side, probably, and the mathematics and the technology and stuff like that, but are you hearing that it's really, really essential that we are spending a significant amount of time trying to connect with these kids personally, as well as creating, effective content?
Oh, absolutely. And that's definitely a message that is echoed throughout different subject areas as well. For example, I have a PE teacher, and he spent about 8 minutes, and I kind of dinged him on it for a little bit. I was like, he spent about 8 minutes just doing like getting to know you, check-ins, things like that. Teachers are using different platforms for kids to check in, share how they're feeling, and then, connecting onto that, talking about a lot of social emotional skills, which I've been seeing a lot, especially in PE, about how to self-regulate and motivate and checking in with themselves and being aware of their emotional energy and emotional IQ. So that's definitely been on the front line for teachers, is that social emotional space, and making sure that they have they have time to put that in. And also, I've also seen school districts that are having mindful Mondays and wellness check-ins with counselors contacting students, as well as meditation days that the kids can come in and they can learn about mindfulness. So there's certainly a lot going on. I think school districts are being extremely resourceful about how they can use their counselors and their support staff and use them to connect and to branch out. So, whether it's having your school counselor do a flipped video where they're recording, messages that are then being incorporated in part of the curriculum. So the kids might have a day where they're going through their menu, their distance learning menu, and maybe one of the days is a video from their school counselor. And the school counselor is talking about, grit and resilience. And then the kids are writing in their journal, or they're doing a seesaw response if they're using seesaw or something like that. So yeah, there's definitely been a huge emphasis on that. I mean, that doesn't go without saying. There certainly is going to be issues and problems. As a matter of fact, I had a problem a few weeks ago with my son who's in 5th grade, and he has a speech and language, an IEP for speech and language, and his teacher had put on this voice augmentator. And so she was teaching her math lesson with a voice changer. And so every time she gave directions, it was at like a really high pitch and a really fast pace. And although her intent was to kind of mix it up and be fun and outside the box, it was so frustrated for him. He started getting really frustrated, and I just said, you know what, let's just take a break. And, as a parent, I was really intentional with just, letting the teacher know what the situation was and so on. And so we went from there, and she had, of course, no ill intent, but wasn't aware that how that was going to be perceived by him.
Well, that's the problem when you're not, when you don't have the face-to-face response, right? So you're sitting there, you're doing something virtually, and you're trying to put something out there in that space. And when you're dealing with 20 or 30 kids, you're going to have, a varied response across that dynamic. And are you like the 5th grader, for example? How much time is he expected to spend online each day?
I have 3 kids at home, and it's very different. So the 5th grader is on from 9 a.m. till about 1 p.m. My oldest son, who's in 7th grade, he logs on also at 9, and he's on till about 2:15. And then my daughter, who is in 2nd grade, she logs on at 8:40, and she's done by 9:15. And that's it.
And do you think that those timeframes are successful? Do you think that they're effective in terms of because everything that I'm hearing from teachers who feel like that they're making progress is that less is more. And the more you're talking, the more you're on videos, the more you're trying to do a regular, 30-minute lesson on a video, the less interested the kids are going to be. Do you feel like your kids are getting a lot out of this? I mean, obviously they're kids of teachers, so they've got an excellent, teacher and parent in that situation. But for kids who aren't in that situation, for kids who don't have somebody sitting next to them or encouraging them and so forth, is that an effective amount of time?
For which one, or for all 3?
For all of them. I mean,
Sure.
5 hours, 4 hours, and an hour and a half.
Say, I know this might go against the grain, but for all 3 of my kids, I would say that honestly, the one who I feel is not getting enough instruction or enough time is my youngest daughter, who is in 2nd grade. She's only getting a 20-minute meeting in the morning with the teacher, and then they do a small group instruction once a week for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And she is just craving having interactions with her peers. She's also kind of being a witness to the amount of time that her brothers are getting. And I want to just preface that with saying that the brothers, I'll bet they are older. They are not in back-to-back Zoom meetings where they're just sitting there as passive recipients of information. They're working in breakout rooms. They're, on phone calls with friends. They're setting up their own Zoom meetings to talk about a project that they're working on. So there's been a lot of differentiation happening in their online meetings, and they seem pretty engaged. Now, is it every day that they're having fun and loving the distance learning? Absolutely not. But for the most part, it has created some structure and routines for them. They know what to do. They're on their schedules. They're up and running. They're interacting with friends. The oldest one is running his math group every day, and they're working on problems. And the teacher has creatively, had the kids working in groups so that they're doing problem solving in groups, and they're submitting that on Google Classroom. So there is that element of interaction with their peers. There is a lot more autonomy. There's a lot more going on, which is why, as I shared with you guys, I'm doing my math talk every day, because I'm a strong believer that, math is a muscle. You need to work it. You need to work it out every single day. Once a week is not enough. Her meeting once a week and doing math once a week. I mean, and it's not that she's not doing anything else. The rest of the week is typical worksheets. But as you know, Rusty, worksheets don't grow dendrites. So
Well, and again, I'm hearing from other parts of the country too, as well, that what we're seeing is that schools are sending the younger kids back to face-to-face learning because it simply doesn't make sense because you can't give them that kind of autonomy in a breakout room. You put a bunch of second graders into a breakout room, they're not going to solve any math problems. And so what they're seeing in Texas and other places like that, we can keep the older kids out. And trying to come up with creative models. It sounds like your older two boys have fantastic opportunities, and it's pretty dynamic, and it's pretty self-directed, and it's good. But the younger kids just simply can't do that. Even if they had a parent sitting over their shoulder, that's not going to work. So it makes sense, but it just seems like, and hopefully California will get to that point where they'll start thinking about these younger kids, especially in the formative years. Like you said, the worksheets just aren't going to make any difference. I've been reading a lot about this idea of learning loss. And I'm interested in your opinion on that, because now we've got some people, and again, it's, you've got just the opposite ends of both spectrums. Some people think that learning loss is a complete farce, and that by the time kids are 18 to 20, they'll be, they'll have caught up. Then you have the other side of that who are saying that these kids who lost that 3 months last year, or that's going to equate to an entire year of learning loss in terms of math and reading and so forth. So what are you hearing about learning loss, or what's your feeling about that?
When I started teaching, Rusty, back in 2000, and I taught in high poverty, low income areas, and we would work our tail off as teachers. We would really work our tail off to get our kids to close the achievement gap, to make sure that we were not a PI school performance, program improvement, and so on and so forth. And, one day I walked into my principal's office and I said to him, I don't get it. We work so hard, and, this school down the road, the teachers, they're just doing worksheets. They're not doing all this professional. They're not doing all the work, and yet their scores are still high. Why is that? And he said, you know what? He's like, these kids come from high socioeconomics. They have well-educated parents. They're always going to perform despite the teacher, despite how bad their teacher is. And so, I mean, it goes back to that fundamental issue of socioeconomics and resources. So do I think there's going to be a huge learning loss in families where parents are gone working all day? Maybe out here in California, they're working on farms. They have to go to work every day, even if they're sick, or they're working in restaurants. They have to be out, or they're working in construction. They have to be out. My partner, my husband, he's in construction. He's gone every day, Rusty. He has not missed one day, from 5:30 a.m. till 3 a.m. So, I'm home alone with my kids, and I work full time, but I'm also an educator. So I'm able to, work it out. Like, my oldest son is my tutor for my youngest. Their kids are getting a ton of resources. I'm building experiences for my daughter, even though, she's not getting a lot in her instruction. She's doing the math talk every day with mom. I had volunteered another parent to do a reading group once a week. She's made huge gains. She's actually gone up 2 grade levels in reading. she's already working on, third grade curriculum, even though she's only in first grade. So she's made huge gains. So it all comes down to socioeconomics and who are the gatekeepers and what they're getting from their parents. I know a lot of parents are using different programs like OutSchool. They're signing their kids up for online classes. These things all take time and money. There's parents who are forming pods and they're hiring tutors. These are things that are actually happening. So do I think there's going to be an achievement gap with students that have higher SES? No, I don't. I think, and research has shown that, a typical homeschooled child in a higher SES is going to be 2-3 grade levels above because they are getting more individualized instruction. And so that's kind of my thinking about that in terms of it really comes down to SES.
Well, I think all the issues that we're talking about right now are coming down to that. I mean, I think that as far as I've had this conversation before, I'm not politically motivated in any way, shape, or form. But in the United States, a lot of people talk about the red versus the blue, and I have always said it's about the green. It's the more green, the more opportunities that you have, and whether you have equal opportunity and equal access are two different things. We can all go to a public library, but if I can't read, it doesn't do me any good to walk into that building. And that's the truth when it comes to the SES situation. So we're thinking about public schools and how this thing's all going to pan out. Are you hearing from, are your young teachers excited? Because I'm hearing from a lot of teachers in the field that they're predicting that they could see anywhere between a 30 to 40% retirement rate in this year, based on the online learning, especially with older teachers who have an opportunity to retire early. Are your teachers excited about the profession? Is this something they're looking forward to?
They are, I would say they have the most angst in terms of the teacher candidates that I work with about being able to complete their program and get everything that they need to get done from the state. Obviously, there are certain requirements to become a teacher, like your CSET, your RECA, things like that, and all of those centers are shut down. So they're feeling a lot of angst. They're still excited about being in the profession and getting into the field. I have, like I said, I have about 30 teacher interns that I'm working with right now that we meet every single week. I mean, we're chatting for like 2-3 hours because they're really craving those professional learning experiences that you would get as a brand new teacher being in the classroom, right? You're going to sit with all the veterans and you're talking about what's happening and what you need to do. So they're really craving those experiences. But they've invested. I mean, becoming a teacher is a huge investment for just of your time as well as your resources. I mean, people are getting into programs and they're spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to become a teacher. It's a huge investment. I don't think they're going to leave the profession because of distance learning. I don't think that, like I said, I'm seeing a lot of teachers that are doing a phenomenal job in distance learning. Kindergarten teacher, she's just rocking it, and as I tell my teacher candidates, you're the weather maker in the classroom, whether you're teaching online or you're face-to-face. Your energy, what you bring into your meetings, how you interact and engage with your kiddos is going to determine whether it's a success or a failure. And so
Right.
I'm seeing a lot of really great stuff that's happening. Having been working in PD with teachers for quite some time, I think there's a typical mindset that you want to talk about things that aren't working and things that you can't control.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of great things that are happening that are coming out of this. Parents, I mean, even in low socioeconomics, parents are like in the meetings. I hear the parents like nudging their kids to engage, like wanting their kids to be an active participant, asking the teacher questions, wanting to know how they can support their kids. So there's definitely been a shift. I like to think about, when bad things happen, right? Like this could be a bad thing, or this could be a huge wonderful thing that really gets us to think differently about how we teach and how our students are educated. Now, I'm not saying let's stay in distance learning land forever. I don't agree. I don't think that's a solution. But I think overall, there's been a huge shift in terms of the role of the teacher,
Right.
the role of the parent. You can't just drop your kid off and pick them up and not know what they're doing all day and not think about how they're processing information or where they need to learn, or emailing your child's teacher and asking, like, how can I support my kid? I see he's really struggling with division, what resources? And so parents are taking more of an active role in
Right.
their child's learning.
Well, I want to share a slide with you in the audience right now. This is something that I saw recently that really it affected me significantly, and it's basically about math, and this is really it's kind of what the concern is for me in terms of public education going forward, and wanting to be a teacher trainer. Obviously, I'm hopefully in the process of being close to being able to work with you in terms of teaching, teacher training and so forth. But if you look at this graph with the participation, and this goes to what you were saying earlier about the high SEL, I mean, we saw a drop in March with the high SEL students, but by the time we got to the 1st of May, they were higher than they were at certain points during the year. But when you see the middle income and the low income folks that are being left behind, these are the kids who either can't access the information, or they can access it, but then they don't understand it, or they don't have the support that they need to do that. And this percentage of change based on zip code and based on free and reduced lunch and so forth. This is really, I think, something that we have to think about as educators in terms of, I do agree that the real positive stuff is going to come out of this, and teachers are going to learn how to flip the classroom both ways and be able to do things amazingly, and the new technology. And I've so appreciated teachers, older teachers in 40s and 50s, my age, who have jumped into technology with both feet, and they haven't been afraid of it. They've been able to find ways to really engage kids, give kids more responsibility, and all those kinds of things. But my concern is that public education may turn out to just become a place where anybody that doesn't have any other options ends up sending their kids. And then, what does public education then become without the community involvement? Because obviously, I don't think we need kids to be in school for 8 hours a day. I don't think that's necessary. I think they need 4 hours a day, and then they need 4 hours of social skills training, learning how to balance a checkbook, learning what credit cards are, learning how to do laundry, learning all the skills that, we need to take care of ourselves. But my concern is that public education, especially in high density areas like LA and San Francisco, where you are, it's really going to be pushed to the limit. And is the money out there right now? Are you seeing schools are able to get the money together to be able to make these things work, or bring on extra staff to do the stuff that they're being asked to do?
Well, certainly schools are purchasing blended learning programs. So programs like IXL, Dreambox, there's definitely been a surge in purchasing programs for distance learning, and kids are using them. Now, whether or not these programs actually work, that there's been a lot of mixed research with that. IXL, for example, they kind of tout that they are closing the achievement gap with English language learners, but they're doing their own white papers. So, there's not enough evidence. I actually just read a paper about technology and math instruction for a research conference, and they said that the highest gain in terms of math achievement for students is when technology is used as a collaborative tool.
Right.
So there needs to be interaction. Like I was sharing with you, I'm doing number talks every day on Zoom. The kids see an image, maybe it's an egg carton. Typical egg carton will have 12 eggs, 4 of them are missing, and then the students are writing their own equation about how many eggs are in the carton. Things like that. And so it's getting them to collaborate, and then they're talking about their explanation. So it needs to be a collaborative tool, and not just, watching Sal Khan from Khan Academy talk about quadratic equations and slope intercept, things like that. That doesn't work for kids. That doesn't really stick. But there are some wonderful tools out there. I love Desmos. I do love Seesaw for the younger kids. You need to make sure that kids are explaining their thinking. For K2 kids, it's a great tool because they can videotape themselves. They can talk about how they found their solution. They can watch each other's videos. So there's a lot of good tools that are out there. Flipgrid is another wonderful tool that include video-based performance. But certainly, you know, I would say that there has been a budget crisis in the state of California. From what I've heard, that the money is currently based on last year's
revenues.
And right now there has been a bit of a mass exodus towards online and like charter schools, because the schools don't feel the teachers are prepared to do distance learning. I mean, the parents, excuse me. So, you know, in my community, actually, there's a charter school. It's called Ocean Grove, and the parents get $2,500 to determine what programs they want to adopt and which curriculum they want to adopt for their kids for distance learning. So right now, those programs are waitlist only. Parents are trying to get in them. They're trying to, especially, you know, parents that feel like I don't want my kids staring at the screen
Right.
for 6 hours a day. This is not an effective way for my child to learn. So, yeah, I don't think districts are not doing everything that they can. I've personally participated in several professional developments for the county office this year, talking about digital tools and ways that teachers can use these digital tools, all for free, because, you know, I know there's a need for teacher professional development, and there's certainly a shortfall of revenue coming in from the districts.
Well, we're coming up on our time limit for these, so try to keep them into that 30 to 45 minute time frame. But I want you to talk about your book for our listeners and those that are going to watch the recording later.
All right.
Let's talk about it a little bit. I know you were very happy that you said it was your first book you put together, so that must be quite a feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's my second book, but it's my first book I did on my own.
Okay.
And so really the book talks about 5 pedagogical practices that you can infuse in your math instruction that are all digital. And so I provide examples and templates, and there's videos. If you are interested, definitely check out my YouTube channel. I have several videos. So it all hinges on the framework of universal design for learning, which is from the CAS Foundation. It originally started, under the guise of special education, because our students learn differently. All kids learn differently, right? So it hinges on the idea of giving students opportunities to have multiple means of expression, representation, and engagement. So under that umbrella, I've designed pedagogical practices for math instruction that incorporate digital tools.
Okay.
So things like number talks and how you do an online number talk. I'm a real big fan of open-ended tasks for differentiated instruction. So you have a task where there is no right or wrong answer. It's just a problem, and the kids get to fill out the problem with their own responses. So it's based on cognitively guided instruction, CGI. And then we talk about projects and how you can do digital projects online as well as in your own backyard. There's a ton of assessment tools that I talk about. And we also I always say we, but I also share a variety of ways to use virtual manipulatives in the classroom. And I love, if you are interested in virtual manipulatives, I love Math Learning Center. I was just showing that with my son. He was really struggling with adding fractions with unlike denominators. And so you can actually make fraction bars on the center, and then you can put overlays so they can see, 1/2 is equal to, 3/6. And so they can see those relationships.
Wow, it sounds fantastic. And people can find it on Amazon. I found it on Amazon today, right? So it's on Amazon. It's available in ebook and also in a paperback edition as well.
Yes, there's over 100 resources. A lot of them I created with my kids. My kids love Roblox, for example, which is an online game. And so I built an entire project based on one of their games, which is called Adopt Me. And they have to adopt pets. And while they're adopting pets, they're dragging base 10 blocks, and they're dragging the price of their pet into the place value template that I've created. So they're using virtual manipulatives, they're using projects, and they're really engaged, because part of engagement is creating content that the students are based on the worlds of your students, right? So
Right.
what do your students like to do? What are they interested in? And then how can you use math as a vehicle to motivate them?
So it's called the Virtual Classroom Learning Experiences in Math for 6 to 8 Learners. Patricia, thank you so much for being with us and for adding this this wonderful session to the summit that's being done by Learning Revolution. I really appreciate it, and all the work that you're doing. Obviously, not only for your kids but for the teachers that you're working with and all that. It's amazing. So thank you very much for being with us today. Any
Thank you,
final thoughts?
No, it's been great to see you. And, I know these are tough times, but remember, with all of the challenges that we face as human beings, there's always a silver lining. So as you begin each day, just try to find the good in everything. Try to just embrace this special time that you get for your kids. I know it's not easy, but talk to your kids, tell them what's working, tell them where you need support, make it a team. Think about historically, people used to live on farms, and that, we used to have kids because they would be our labor, right? They would help us in our families. And so, connecting with your kids is so important. Share your love, share your frustration, make it a team effort. Reach out, join professional learning networks. There's so many. I have a Facebook site you can join, ask questions, ask parents what they're doing. My sister calls me all the time asking for advice and support. So build a community. This is how we get through these things. This is really all about building these online virtual communities and supporting one another. So thank you so much for having me today.
All right. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thanks for everybody that joined us today. Thanks for all you're doing out there. You're touching the future. We'll see you next time here on the Connected Classroom. Have a fantastic day.